nothing better than being a Raider fan and walking out of a stadium with a victory.
He is one of those guys that I would hate to have played against because he's not going to give up.
As he grabbed Gardner Minshew and said, "We got your back." That was leadership.
That black hole, we're counting on you. We're going to kick off right to you. Wherever we go, we're going right to you guys.
Welcome to Raiders Rundown on the Raiders YouTube channel, and we're also live on Raider Nation Radio. Appreciate you joining us today from the Intermountain Healthcare Performance Center, Raiders headquarters. I'm JT, and we got a busy show today. I was in here early today. Antonio Pierce, we'll get to him. He's going to join us a little bit later on here in the first hour. As always, Lincoln Kennedy will join us in a few minutes. Our insider, Levi Edwards, will round out the hour from the digital team. As we open it up, the Raiders are coming off a monster win at home in front of Cleveland. And obviously, we're going to get you ready for the Denver Broncos coming up as the Raiders hit the road this Sunday. But the reason we were here today is Antonio Pierce met the media downstairs. The Davante Adams story is now a big national story, and there's a lot of reports around the NFL about the future of Davante Adams with the silver and black. Here's what the coach said downstairs a little while ago.
Antonio, obviously some developments over the last 24 hours. I'm curious where things stand with the organization and Davante Adams. And there was also a report about a social media post involving Davante's status with the team that you'd liked. I was wondering if you could address that.
Yeah, Davante's dealing with a hamstring. He's rehabbing, and the rest of us are focused on Denver.
Is he going to be here in the building today? Or?
He's supposed to be rehabbing.
So yesterday, Davante went on the Up and Adams show and discussed, there's a social media post earlier this week. Is that something that was accidental on your part in terms of liking the post? Or?
Yeah, I'm just focused on Denver.
Coach, how do you think Jack Jones responded to missing some time to start the last game?
Oh, no, I think Jack Jones handled it like a pro, right? Like I said after the game, that was between me and Jack. We did what we had to do, and Jack did what he had to do when he won the game. Thought he tackled, thought he was physical, thought the effort was there. Everything that we asked him to do, he did.
Have you communicated with Davante, and where is the relationship with you? And
me and Davante talk often.
Have you talked to him since all of this?
I believe that between me and Davante.
Are you concerned at all about this being a distraction?
No, because we're focused on Denver.
Okay, so you just saw it there. Coach will join us here in a little bit, and obviously they want to move on today and just talk and focus on football. And that happens from time to time. Different organizations handle things differently. This is the head coach. This is what he feels now. He's trying to get the team ready for a big game coming up that could put the Raiders above 500 to 3-2. And as a lot of people have been asking me, and we'll cover it here with Lincoln coming up in a bit, it's a unique time now for Davante Adams and his future with this organization. And there's a lot going on behind the scenes today, right outside the studio, I'm assuming, with Tom Telesco, Davante's agent, Antonio Pierce. He does have an injury. I've always said, always respect the player's injury. When a player is not available and the coach tells you why and there's an injury, you have to handle that with respect. And I think the media did that today. They asked the obvious questions about Davante Adams and the news that are swirling around the NFL. There's a lot of reporters who I respect and insiders that believe that a trade is evident, but we're going to wait in the building until we get direction on what's going to happen next. I know that frustrates a lot of fans who want to know the answer here, but Davante hasn't spoke much, period, other than loving it here in Las Vegas, wanting to be a Raider. That's typically been his comments up until this week, and we'll hear if Davante starts talking more, what he does with this injury, and if he'll be back playing for the silver and black. So is there uncertainty? There's always uncertainty. This is a professional football team, and they are dealing with this matter professionally with Davante and his agent, and we'll find out. I know a lot of people are simulating trades, what the return would be if that happens. We're not there yet. Obviously, the team will let us know if they're moving in that direction when they want to. But at this point in time, Davante Adams is the top story in the NFL, and clearly the head coach wants to move on and get to Denver. And this is a massive game coming up because the Raiders have an opportunity to stack wins, not a loss, a win, a loss. They got to start stacking wins, and that's what we're going to focus on here the rest of the show. So they're playing at Denver. They've won 8 in a row against the Denver Broncos, which is a really big deal if you look at the history of this rivalry and the bad blood in this rivalry. The Denver Broncos have never won in Las Vegas. They haven't won as the Denver Broncos against the Las Vegas Raiders, and you know that troubles them and bothers them, and their fans are going to be ready to go. Fortunately, Raider Nation travels pretty good to Denver on the trips that I went on in the past, and I expect Raider fans to show up. But this is going to be a tough game because Denver's won 2 in a row, and Denver could have been 0-4 by this point in the season. I can't believe they went into Tampa Bay and beat Baker Mayfield, and then they went into New York, New Jersey, and beat Aaron Rodgers in one of the ugliest games of the year, period. Maybe the ugliest game of the year. So Denver is riding high. But we want to begin also with the Raiders' win against the Cleveland Browns and go through some of the bigger plays in that game, the game-changing plays. And it started off with Deshaun Watson. He played his best football in his entire run with the Cleveland Browns in his first possession at Allegiant Stadium, leading him to a touchdown.
Play action, rolls to his left, fires to the end zone, 2 men open, 1 catches it, touchdown Blake Whiteheart. He had 2 wide open tight ends out to the left flat to throw to. He picked the deeper one in the end zone, and Whiteheart has his first career touchdown, and the Browns have a 6-0 lead about 9.5 minutes into this quarter.
You don't want to have a quarterback get off, find a way to get off. Deshaun Watson had a good series that first time out.
No question. He was 8 for 8 for 40 yards and a touchdown pass.
I mean, Jason Horowitz and Lincoln Kennedy just told you 8 for 8, and I was right there, and I couldn't believe it. I mean, he was pinpoint accurate. He was ready to play, and he carved the Raiders up, and that was concerning because he's a really good athlete. And eventually, Deshaun Watson is going to play a complete football game, and the Raiders had to make adjustments along the way. For the Raiders, Trey Tucker, I thought this was a nice wrinkle to see some of the wide receivers touch the ball as runners, and the Raiders get on the board.
Minshew out of the gun. He sends Bowers in motion to the right. 3rd and goal. Shotgun snap. Handoff to White. They run a reverse to the near side. Tucker. He's got space at the 5. Finds the corner. Touchdown Raiders. Trey Tucker on the reverse to the left side. Beat the Browns to the corner. And the Raiders cap off a drive with a 3-yard touchdown. And they're back in it, baby.
Yeah, not only are they back in it, but that is a new wrinkle that I'll talk about with Coach coming up here. That is something we need to see. We need to see something unique and different from the offense, not just the pass or picking up first downs running the ball or getting off the field because you can't run the ball. That was an exceptional way to get the fastest player on the team the ball without jeopardizing an interception or a tip ball. I really love that, and I think the Raiders found something in this game that they're going to have to build on. The interception by Trayvon Merrick was a big point in the game. Amari Cooper was the guy they were targeting the whole game. He's a good receiver, but the Raiders catch a big break and make a play on this one.
Deshaun Watson, the shotgun, play action. He pumps out to the right. He settles. He's looking for a deep shot. He fires over the middle. It's bobbled by Cooper and picked off by the Raiders. Merrick has it, and he's brought down at the 48-yard line. Watson threw a bullet, and Cooper batted it up into the air, right into the waiting arms of Trayvon Merrick.
That was an important moment in the game there because it could have went the other way. You knew Cleveland, who had a big-time fan base in the building, you didn't want to keep those fans going. You had an opportunity after that to really set the tone and put the game away, but Cleveland did not give up in this game. The Raiders turn it over on a play with Zeus here, and the Browns get right back in it.
Running play to the right, and he's hitting the backfield. The ball's out, and it's recovered by Cleveland. Racing down the near sideline. The Browns heading to the end zone. Touchdown, Cleveland. Rodney McLeod Jr., the backup safety, scooped up the fumble, running down the sideline, and disaster for the Raiders on the opening play of the 4th quarter.
Cannot have turnovers.
So Hopkins on for the extra point for Cleveland. Raiders got some pressure, but not enough, and he missed it. Well, they got pressure not to block it, but they got enough in his face where he pushed it wide left.
That was such a monster moment in the game. I really remember where I was, sitting with my wife and son, saying that's going to come back to help the Raiders, because you just knew Cleveland would have an opportunity to kick a field goal and tie the game. Matter of fact, they did. But Charles Snowden and the rest of the defense, knowing that Cleveland had a score to win the game, a field goal didn't work, they made a huge game to close it out on defense.
Raiders need one play, and everyone in this building knows that's what they need.
There's a ball game.
Watson's in the gun out of the timeout.
They got to get right. They're not right. They're not right. Their coverage is, well, now they're better.
They bring Cooper to the left. There's the snap. Watson pumps. He's under pressure. He's rolling out to the left. Raiders giving chase.
Ball's
and
out.
they have
Ball's
a
out.
sack.
Oh.
It's Charles Snowden with the sack and the biggest play of the day. Charles Snowden off the edge. Back-to-back plays. And the Raiders defense with 34 seconds left might have just won this game against Cleveland.
Jason Horowitz on the call, along with Lincoln Kennedy, who's kind enough to join us. He joins us every week. And so, Link, let's get into your opinion on Davante Adams and what's happening around here and the decision that the organization has to make or what Davante wants.
Well, first of all, it's good to be with you, JT. Sorry about the technical difficulties earlier. Here's the thing. I'm of the mindset where I'm partially divided. The thing is that I would hate to lose such a traumatic, good player to anything, injury, leaving elsewhere, anything. The fact is that I would hate to do that because I think the Raiders are on the verge of doing something special, and that's becoming a viable candidate or a viable, player and the upper echelon things that are going with the NFL. I would hate to lose a good play for that, but. And I say this with a big but. If I'm in the locker room and I figure out that a player doesn't want to be there, I don't want you there. Look, I hate to see you go. I can imagine the things that you can do for it, but I don't want you here if you don't want to be here. Because the thing is, I need everybody to buy in, if that makes sense, JT. Mm-hmm. That comes down to the truth. I need everybody to buy in. And if you're not going to buy in, then you're against us. If you're not with us, you're against us. And I would hate to see Davante Adams go, but if he doesn't want to be a Raider, sayonara. See ya.
Thank you, Lincoln, for those strong comments. Let's get to the running game and what you saw from the booth there. 152 yards. It had to happen. I didn't know when it was going to happen. I didn't have tremendous confidence because they weren't running it at all. But something clicked, and Jackson Powers-Johnson brought in. Maybe you saw Colton Miller a little bit healthier, the interior of the line there. What was your big takeaway on why the Raiders were able to run the football? I
don't mind the creativity and the run design. I don't mind that. The thing is I think the Raiders are still reeling, trying to find themselves and try to find their way. It's coming. It's moving in the right direction. Look, I firmly believe, JT, that the more time a starting offensive line, consistent 5 guys across the board, a starting offensive line plays together, I think they'll be better together. The problem that we have is that we have not had the same starting 5 guys out there with the tight ends, with the chemistry, with the sort of collusion that goes from Getsy trying to call the plays and make them work. We haven't seen that yet, until this past game. Now, I don't know if we're there yet because they're still dancing around with the starting 5. But until we get one consistent starting 5, it's going to be hard to run the football. And now I think that's the conundrum the Raiders are under. After 1 month of football, they've got to figure out who are our players, put them in the game, let them play together, let them figure it out. We haven't seen that yet.
One follow-up on that. Let's assume that the only player we're talking about is Thayer Mumford, who's been banged up and injured, going back to camp with his hand and what's happening now, and DJ Glaze, who I know you're impressed with the way he's played so far. Right. It seems to just be that position now as we look at right tackle, because if Colton's healthy, he's the best offensive lineman. I don't think Jackson Powers-Johnson should come out of games anymore. He was drafted to play. If he's healthy, he goes. And then you have Parham and Andre James there. So as we look at this, is that still that right tackle, the position that you dominated there, where they're just eventually going to figure that out and we'll have the 5?
It's the right tackle. It's the right guard. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Look, JPJ started this last game at right guard, or came in at right guard for Dylan Parham. If Dylan is out, I don't know if that's true. If Dylan is out with a foot injury or an ankle injury, so be it. But you have to have the consistency at your starting 5 to come in there and play, to understand what you have before you, to understand what you need to work from. And that's going to be whether JP is right guard, left guard. Look, it's for the layman's at home, it's really small detail, but it counts. because DJ Glade needs to know that he's playing next to JPJ or he's playing next to someone else. And the same thing goes for Colton Miller on the left side. You need to know, because there's different nuances, there's different tendencies that these guys have when they're in the guard spot.
Lincoln Kennedy is our guest. Let's go to the Broncos defense. Zach, I look at this defense overall from the interior and what they're able to do. Zach Allen now has the most pressures in the entire league from inside the interior. He is a problem here. Everybody talks about Patrick Surtain II. They're just base defense before Sean Payton even got there. And we went back to Vic Fangio, who the Raiders were pretty successful against. Lincoln, they've always seemed to be one of those defenses that build it from the back all the way to the defensive line. They really care about their safeties and their cornerbacks, and they seem to always be on the same page against the Raiders.
And their cornerbacks and safeties are going to play press. They're going to make force the Raiders to throw intermediate or long balls to get the ball out of their hand. That's a big deal. Going forward, look, I've always said this when it comes to the Broncos. Eventually, they're going to figure it out. They got people that get paid over there, and eventually they're going to figure it out. And I think the Broncos are close. The Raiders aren't in a position, even though they've controlled the Broncos over the last couple of years, the Raiders aren't in a position, to me, JT, to where they can look forward and say, you know what, we got this. They're not there yet. They're not that good of a team. They've owned the Broncos over the last couple of years, which is right. But it's not going to continue if they don't find a way to figure it out. And the thing is that I don't know, JT, in all honesty, I don't know if we came out of the Browns game saying that we think we're closer to getting it for the rest of the season. I don't know if they established their identity out of the Browns game. It was a hard-fought win, no doubt. They deserved everything they have coming to them. But this is not going to be a gimme, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, Denver's ranked second, Lincoln, in total defense. I have the numbers here in front of me. They're giving up 256 a game, 1,025 yards total. But this team, the way they're winning is so unique. They're another team that should be 0-4. They were 0-2, and they had to go to Tampa to take on Baker Mayfield. There was no one playing better other than Derek Carr after week 2 than Baker Mayfield. And they won that game, and they dominated that game. And then in a sloppy rain game, they go up to the Meadowlands and beat Aaron Rodgers. And a lot of that had to do with Aaron Rodgers' cadence, trying to get Denver to jump off sides. The Jets couldn't handle their own quarterback when it was in the red zone there, and that just builds confidence. So, Lincoln, that's what I see about Denver here. Without diving heavy into the stats, they're a team that should have been 0-4 on paper. They're 2-2 like the Raiders. They got a gorilla on their back because they lost 8 in a row, and they got a pretty good coaching staff here that's been waiting to play the silver and black.
The Broncos are riding high, JT. Honestly, the Broncos are coming into this game saying that we can beat the Raiders. And I firmly believe that. I think that they're at a confidence. They're at an if you will, they're at a moment where they feel they can cross that out and beat the Raiders. They haven't beaten them in 4 years, 3 years, whatever the breakout is. But it is what it is. Now for the Broncos, they've got some things figured out. They've got a consistency in their running game, passing game, as well as their defense. This is going to be a big challenge for the Raiders to go into Denver and find a way to beat the Broncos.
Yeah, the way I see it, Lincoln, it's pretty simple. Bo Nix, they wanted Bo Nix. They ran Russell Wilson out of town. I repeat, they ran him out of town, a guy who was on the verge of getting a gold jacket. They wanted nothing to do with him. Okay, they go after Bo Nix, and they were fortunate to get him. As you know, all those quarterbacks were gone, and they wanted a quarterback. So they get Bo Nix. So they're going to tell you that's the guy they wanted because Penix Jr. was gone, and Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams. All the big names were gone. But let's give him credit. This is a guy Sean Payton wanted. Through 4 games, he has 1 touchdown total and 4 interceptions, but he's the winning quarterback of a team that threw for 60 yards at the Meadowlands here. Eventually, as you said, they're going to get it right. He's going to have a game where he throws for 300 yards or so. We saw the Raiders beat Deshaun Watson. We saw the Raiders really get carved up by Andy Dalton. They have to learn their lesson now, Lincoln. Okay, they got Deshaun Watson at the end of the game. You were on the call. They cannot let Bo Nix have a career day in this rivalry now because he's really struggling to start his career.
Then I'm hoping the Raiders figure out the issues that are going on with the middle of the field and defense.
Great point.
Because the fact is that I think Andy Dalton showed if you will, carved a pathway on how to beat the Raiders down the middle of the center of their defense. Deshaun Watson picked on it a little bit, Didn't get as much, success, obviously, that Andy Dalton did, but he picked on it a little bit. And going forward, this is going to be what teams are going to highlight and going to do against the Raiders. They're going to run the football. And if you have success running the football, you're going to set up the ability to attack the middle of the field. The Raiders need to be mindful of that. And I don't know if they have it corrected, because they didn't have it corrected in the first half of the Cleveland game. But they did some things on the other end, obviously, with the turnovers, helped out a big time. But it did something on the other end in the second half to sort of slow that down. The Browns weren't having as much success as they had in the first half. But, Denver's definitely going to attack that. Without a doubt, they're going to come after that.
Well, Lincoln, with about a minute to go, another big thing is Cleveland and the Raiders were a mash unit last week. We had you on during the inactives. I never seen that. No Devontae, no Max, Divine Diablo. Denver's not as banged up as the Raiders. This is going to be a really important week for the Raiders to try to get healthy. And as you know, you've played. You were always a warrior and got out there and played. But there are some guys who are just not healthy enough to go. So let's wrap it up with these reserve players like Snowden and some of the other guys that came in and said, I love this opportunity. I'm going to make plays.
I'm happy to see that. I really am. Because most coaches have the theory of next man up. I will say this, JT. This is a litmus test for the Raiders and actually for the National Football League. This October has historically, in my opinion, been one of those months that you see teams figure out without their star players. That's the Raiders' conundrum. The fact is that we saw it last week, and I was glad to see it. I was glad it turned out positively. Without Max Crosby, who's going to be a catalyst for this defense? The entire defense rose up and found a way to play. We need that. Same thing is going to be said about the offense. If Davante Adams doesn't want to be a Raider from this point forward, you're going to have to figure out other players to win. And that's the litmus test for the Raiders. Just like the rest of the league, there are stars throughout the league that are not playing right now. And teams have to figure out, for the Raiders' sense, and that's all we care about, obviously, for the Raiders' sense, it's going to be going forward, how do we find a way to win without our stars? And I think that's big for this team going forward, because this is where it counts. You'll have your October month, and that's to be said. But November, December, and January, as we see the push, is going to be big, because you're not going to be without some stars in those months as well. And you got to find a way to win and find a way to make it happen.
Thank you, Lincoln. Safe travels to Denver. Appreciate you.
You got it, JT. I'll talk to you soon.
The great Lincoln Kennedy, man, this is gold. The information he gives us. And here, if you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening, you know our lineup on Raider Nation Radio. It's the morning tailgate, Pacific 7 to 10. The Rich Eisen Show. I always say he's Raider friendly. Rich always talks Raiders. I'm on every day, noon to 2, and Unnecessary Roughness with Q Myers is from 2 to 5 p.m. So with the news of Davante Adams, the head coach, Antonio Pierce is going to join us coming up here on the other side. Also, Levi Edwards from the digital team. For those who showed up against Cleveland, that was a really fun game to be at. And it was up and down. It was up and down. I was up and down in the end zone with the microphone, telling the Browns fans to go home with the loss. I love the energy that we've seen so far at Allegiant Stadium. And I'm counting on Raider Nation to get to Denver, because we know Pittsburgh's coming in after that. They travel well, and this is an opportunity for the Raiders to stack some wins. Got to beat the Denver Broncos. Let's keep this train going so the Raiders can say they've won 9 in a row against Denver. When we come back, the head coach of the Silver and Black, a lot happening in the building today. We'll hear from Antonio Pierce next. This is Raiders Rundown.
We got to get into personal stories, obviously, in your respective careers, what you all have accomplished, the eyes that are on you constantly through that, and being I'll start with you, Jim, Mexican quarterback in the NFL, Tom Flores, coach, what the Raiders did during that time and continue to do, break ground and bring people on that, number one, deserve the position, but don't always look like everyone else, which leads to the representation, which is amazing. Do you have any personal stories during that time that really made you proud to be, outside of the wins, but something that just made you feel proud to be a part of that?
When I joined the Raiders, and I'm proud to be Hispanic and accomplish what I accomplished. And I followed Tom Flores in so many ways. It just made me proud to be Hispanic. And I know kind of be on the national stage, although I didn't think about it like that then. I was just trying to compete and do the best job I could, and I worked hard, there's no question about it, to get where I got, but I was just trying to lead my life and get better each and every day, every week, and compete as much as I could.
To be a Raider is to be bold, powerful, and loyal.
What's a Raider? Always a Raider.
Raider Nation family is authentic, with the heart here in Las Vegas. We are often imitated, but can never be duplicated. Why?
The autumn wind is a Raider.
Because there is only one nation.
Celebrate 65 seasons of Raiders football. Be a part of our legacy with a special edition brick featuring the exclusive 65-year anniversary logo. Get your brick installed at Allegiant Stadium, along with a replica for your home or office. Order now and support the Raiders Foundation, benefiting military and veterans, wellness initiatives, and youth development. Secure your place in Raiders history today at RaidersFoundationBricks.com. Welcome in head coach Antonio Pierce. So, Coach, let's begin with the current status of Davante Adams.
Yeah, I mean, he's working through an injury and hamstring, and we'll see how that goes.
With all the media coverage surrounding this story, what have you instructed your players as they meet the media and prepare for the Broncos?
Yeah, focus on the Broncos. That's our biggest worry right now. Winning a divisional game on the road, coming off a great home win with our crowd, and again, expecting Raider Nation to be in Denver.
152 yards rushing. That's what we've been talking about in this room for a while. What clicked? What'd you see on tape?
I thought a really good job by our coaches. Creative ways to get other guys involved. I mean, you saw a receiver in the backfield. You saw a receiver carry a reverse. You saw a jet sweep by tight end. Yeah. And then our two backs did an outstanding job. But I think more importantly, man, I got to give it to these guys up front. I thought the guys up front, our tight ends, our receivers, all 11, especially the O-line, though, they were finishing, they were straining. You saw guys finishing at the Powell. We had Jackson Powers jumping over Powell's. I thought the energy, the effort, the strain, I thought the physicality as the game went on really showed up for us.
I thought it was a great wrinkle to have two receivers score with the ball rushing.
Yeah. Listen, I mean, great call, right down there in the red zone, kind of breaking some tendencies there. If you're probably, doing some, scouting reports and self-scouting on us. But I thought a really good job. Again, I'm just go back to the perimeter. When you do anything with the reverse, say gadget-type plays, the perimeter blocking is key. And Trey Tucker, how big is he again? One other day he was 6'3", like 220.
6'3", 220 sounds right.
That's how he acts. He had his big boy pads on the other day and blocking there for DJ Turner, and then those guys returned the favor for him. But I thought those guys did an outstanding job. Look, we got two speedy receivers there, right? And then put McAllister back there as well. We gave him a toss. That showed up on film. So I thought just overall, the players, the coaches, the scheme, that all came to fruition.
What about Jacoby embracing the number one, and he's going to get doubled here, the way he looked in that game, and his leadership, too? Tell us about that.
Yeah, I think we've all said it, quietly, this guy's got something to him. We've heard players on our team speak about Jacoby, but I think the unselfishness of Jacoby is the most important thing. There's a clip. The ball's going the other direction, and he hits Myles Garrett, puts him down. And Myles looks at him like, who the hell just hit me? It's Jacoby Myers. And put him on the ground, right, on his side, on his backside. And what Jacoby's able to do, man, run after the catch, the ability to block. We've seen him throw the ball. I mean, you really got to ask yourself, what can he not do? And he's an ultimate team player.
I know you want to get Brock in the end zone, and we've talked about red zone efficiency in that game. That was a war. That was a battle. Getting down there was tough. We'll get to your defense in a second. What about Bowers and the way he's playing and trying to get him more touches in the end zone?
Yeah, we did. I mean, I know he wants the first one back.
Yeah.
Right? He dropped it, and it was a big gain there for us. But that's good to see a rookie respond that way. And I thought it was a really good job by Luke Getsy to follow that up with giving him a jet sweep, right? Get him going. And then I think everybody saw what we've been seeing all training camp and all season long. A guy that when he has a ball in his hand, he's like a running back. He runs behind his pads and runs through tackles. But I think Brock, to his credit, and Harrison Bryant as well, I thought those two gentlemen, played an outstanding game for us. And just the production. Again, we always talk about receptions and all the stuff that shows up on the stat line. It's all those other things. There's a play, again, on a toss crack where we get a ball to McAllister, and Brock's guy's in the end zone, 15 yards down the field. He is driving him down the field in his field. And then you see Harrison Bryant doing the same thing, driving his guys out of bounds. So, it's all those things that don't show up on the stats sheet that really showed up in this game.
Defense, Adam Butler. Now, I don't look at stats really until week 4 because they're trends and now they become stats. Wow, what you got out of him and Christian in the middle, and then touch on Tyree because PFF looks at numbers, but we saw the bull rush and we saw him chasing the other side. That's what I want to get into.
Yeah, man, listen, Adam Butler delivered, and we do it every Friday or Saturday, have somebody speak to the team. And Adam Butler did that, and it set the tone. Like normally, I did it just like today. I set the mindset, how we're going to win, the keys to victory. But then he had a message, and it resonated with amongst our team, our coaches, and I kind of used that throughout the weekend. We've been seeing that play. That the same play he made on that screen, he did against Baltimore. He's done consistently. He's always running the ball, his effort. Another unselfish player. And I think the key when you put him and Christian Wilkins inside, the middle push that we got, that pressure that we was allowing to our edges to get there, not to allow Deshaun to step up at times, especially in critical on that 4th and 3 to make those plays on the perimeter. I thought was huge for us. And it was really good, man, to see Tyree finally get off the rock. You saw a different look in his eyes. And again, no Max Crosby, right? We lost our superhero, and everybody else stepped up. We talked about that next man up mentality, and they really bought into it.
I want to follow up with Adam. How do you choose that player? Was it a feel or just, hey, this is the opponent, what he's going to have to do? That'll change from week to week?
Yeah, it's changed. It's coaches. It could be anybody in the building.
Okay.
And I just kind of ask people, and hopefully for most of the time they're in all our team meetings, so they kind of hear the message. And I said, listen, however you spill it and however you want to go about it, just give us something, right? Give me some words of advice and wisdom, stories, wherever it may be. We don't know what's coming. I don't know what's coming.
You don't know.
And with Adam Butler, I looked at him throughout the week, and it was Wednesday, Thursday. And I went to him Thursday afternoon after practice and say, would you mind speaking to the team? And listen, he knocked it out the park.
Let's move to Denver. They were staring 0-3. They beat Baker Mayfield and Aaron Rodgers back-to-back on the road. Right. Something happened with them where it clicked. I mean, Bo Nix only had 60 yards passing, and they beat the Jets. So Sean Payton, you competed against him as a player, now as a coach. Give me what you're seeing with the Denver Broncos over those last 2 road wins.
Defense.
Yeah.
Defense. Vance Joseph, he got those guys. He got them rolling. Play up front, a lot of movement, pressure. You're going to see, Patrick Surtain. He'll travel probably more likely with our best receivers and see those matchups there. But you're going to see a lot of pressure from them. They're stout. They're stingy. They're bringing a bunch of heat. And then I think he's doing a really good job with Bo Nix on the offensive side, Sean Payton. You can tell he's running what he's comfortable with. There's not a lot on his plate, but they're very efficient. He's, for the most part, taking care of the football, and they want to run. Right, all his teams always want to run. They put up numbers because they had Drew Brees, but he always does a good job of running the ball and setting the tone at the line of scrimmage. That's going to be key for us this week.
Yeah, I think it's interesting with Bo because you had to look at him. He was there in the draft, was 1 pick away there. So as you evaluated him, what'd you see? Arm strength, legs, his smarts, because he's their franchise guy now that Russell Wilson's gone.
Yeah, it was good. We even brought him in for 30 visit, interviewed him at the Combine, so spent a lot of time with him. I know him back from college, recruiting him as well. He's a leader. He's a winner. He's played a lot of football. He has a certain aura about himself that people believe in, and you can see that. And you can see that when the game's on the line, the kid's not flinching. I mean, look, to go like he did last week in bad weather in New York versus Aaron Rodgers and, take care of the football and put his team in position to win, that's a credit to him.
Zach Allen, 23 pressures. That leads the NFL in the interior. He looks like he could be a problem here. You got to focus on him, too.
Yeah, it's going to be critical this week. The interior rush, those 3 guys, our interior offensive linemen, with Jackson and Andre James, and again, depending on what's going on with our guard situation, just those guys really taking care of the middle. Colton Miller, look like it'll be DJ Glaze more than likely again this week, and just those guys working together. I think we're trying to find the right match up front, right? What's that continuity look like? Who's the best 5 that we can match up and gel with in the run game and the passing game for us to be successful? And I'm looking forward to the challenge because last week was a big challenge.
Right.
That was a really good defense, line that we went up against the Cleveland Browns. And for the most part, we did what we needed to do when we needed to do it.
I want to end with your quarterback as you continue to evaluate him and where you're at with the quarterback position here because this is a big game on the road. And we saw the early road game, especially the win in Baltimore, as the quarterback really played well down the stretch to get you a win.
Yeah, I mean, listen, month into it, right? We got 4 games, and that's typically what the NFL goes off of, right? 4 games. So we did a lot of self-scouting over the last couple of days and things we need to clean up, and Gardner understands that as well. I think, what would you like to see with him more is just the command, the leadership, making those throws. We had some opportunities last week that he wants back, I want back, the team wants back, and we got to make those plays. But more importantly, just don't turn the ball over.
Right.
Give us a chance, right? Keep the ball. It always ends up in the Raiders' hands. If we could do that, we'll be fine.
Raider fans travel to Denver. It's very hostile. I just want to end on the rivalry. All right, there's been 8 in a row. We know that. You're on the road. You're 2-2. This is a big pivot game to get one there. Just this rivalry with the Broncos since you've come to the Raiders. It's different than Kansas City and the Chargers. Yeah. What do you think about this organization when you play them?
Yeah, first and foremost, we're not going to talk about being 8-0. We're 0-0 this year against that team, and we got to go out and do a great job of handling the crowd noise. They'll be excited, especially with 2 wins on the road, back home now. So we have to deal with the crowd noise, offensively be good. But it's one of those things where, you look, Kansas City, like, no, it's this team. You know what I mean? It's Sean Payton. It's the way this team is set up. It's the history of it, especially back in the 90s when they were rolling and the Raiders in the 80s. Yeah. I mean, there's been some bloodbath games, right? Yeah. And I know over the last, few years, it's kind of went in our favor, and that's great. But we got to do it this year in 2024, and that's our mindset.
Good luck, Coach.
Thank you.
Have a good one. Thank you, Coach. Thank you. There's nothing better than being a Raider fan and walking out of a stadium with a victory.
He is one of those guys that I would hate to have played against because he's not going to give up.
As he grabbed Gardner Minshew and said, "We got your back." That was leadership.
That black hole, we're counting on you. We're going to kick off right to you. Wherever we go, we're going right to you guys.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Here we are, Raiders Rundown, where Levi Edwards joins us from our digital team. And before we get to Denver, we'll jump in on the win against Cleveland. It was a back-and-forth game. Deshaun started off really fast, ready to roll, and the Raiders' defense made adjustments.
Most definitely. When I saw Deshaun Watson play, it looked like a vintage Clemson Tigers Deshaun Watson that we got in Allegiant Stadium. So I was really, I don't want to say the word surprised, but it was very interesting to see. However, the defense and the depth that they had around that unit, they adjusted. Patrick Graham, he made some great adjustments, and they really settled in. They really got after the Browns' battered offensive line. Obviously, they had a lot of injuries. Were able to get a lot of pressure, including the sack that ultimately won the game. Shout out to Christian Wilkins for the line of the week. He said, it might be fall here in Las Vegas, but it was snowing in Allegiant Stadium. So shout out to him for that.
Yeah, Snowden played great. A couple other things I wanted to address. We're now getting used to, unfortunately, no Malcolm Kuntz. So you got Tyree on that side. You see Snowden, the rest of the defense there. And then with Christian in the middle, I thought it was the Adam Butler game. And, I don't watch him as closely as you do in practice, but I watched him closely from my seat and in the press box, and he was a disruptor.
Most definitely. There was actually several practices throughout training camp and just this offseason where Adam Butler would have moments where he would just shut down the practice. You always talk about Max Crosby getting after and Christian Wilkins getting after, but Adam Butler, he's a guy, this offseason that has really taken his game to the next level, and I think he's taking a lot of things personally with just, outside world and what they believe his value is and things of that nature. So I really do think that this is, for him in his mind, kind of a breakout year that he wants to have.
I love this information from Levi Edwards. He's embedded with the team, and you know the team, you travel with the team. That's a very important point. I don't know a lot, and a lot of our audience doesn't know the difference between, hey, who has a chip on their shoulder because of money, playing time, snap, contract year, and all that. We knew Malcolm was coming into a contract year, and hopefully he'll be rewarded. He's a great young player in the league. But I think that's where the organization is right now. It's next man up. We're all dealing with that. And maybe someone behind the scenes can get more playing time and make more money and get a bigger contract because Antonio Pierce needs him now along with Tom Telesco, and they step up and do their job.
Most definitely. Something that I've heard in the locker room has been from Antonio Pierce, has been from multiple players, and it's kind of the next man mentality saying they've been saying don't flinch, don't blink a lot. Anybody who I've talked to, they said don't flinch, don't blink. They've said that for weeks, months now, and you can see it. When someone goes down, not that, they don't care, but when it comes down to it, this is the NFL. They're all getting paid to play football. They all want to be at their best. And so when someone goes down, obviously it's sad, but in your mind, it's like, okay, it's my time to go out there and show what I can do and contribute to this team.
I want to jump into Denver's defense. It's really good. Patrick Surtain II is a big-time player in this league. And I'm looking at some of the other defensive players who are having big years this year. They are flying to the ball. Zach Allen is is number 1 overall coming into this game with pressures from the interior, and they can line him up very similar to Max anywhere there. So they're getting a pass rush. They have safeties and corners that really fit in well, no matter who the head coach is and defensive coordinator. If you're going to the Denver Broncos and you're in the secondary, you end up becoming a ball hawk.
Most definitely, and Patrick Surtain, he's a guy that I've seen perform like this at Alabama, former NFL player's son. So he's a guy that has really been the star of that defense since he's been drafted there a few years ago. And he's had his fair share of battles that he's won and lost against the Raiders over the past couple of years of his career. And you start to notice it's starting to get to a point of almost respect in the NFL where a lot of teams just don't really throw the ball his way. Obviously, he'll allow a play here and there, but he's just a guy that a lot of quarterbacks, when you watch the Broncos play on that defense, a lot of guys aren't throwing the ball his way. So you're starting to, try to figure out, okay, well, is he a guy that you're going to attack? Is he a guy that you try to, go away from? But with Jacoby Myers now kind of, presuming the role as receiver 1, I think he's a guy that can also have good success against Patrick Surtain with just his frame and his route running.
Levi Edwards is our guest from the digital team. So as Lincoln came on before, you talked about the fact that they're so good they can play press coverage, they can recover, they can do a lot of things. And I think Gardner Minshew, who is a quarterback now that has to play for his job. I like Gardner. I think he was picked for the right reasons for a game like this, a game in Baltimore. We led the team back. He's got to have a big game, and he's going up against a good defense. Do you think this is a game where the ball has to come out very quickly? I'm talking about 2, 3-step drops because we saw the receivers getting the ball in the running game. But now Bowers, no Michael Mayer, still for personal reasons. I just think he's got to make some more plays outside the pocket. And Levi, he's got to be more confident with his legs. I feel like he wants to run, but he's looking upfield, and he's stopping and trying to wait for someone to get open. I think this is a game like the way Jimmy Garoppolo did a couple of years ago, where he sees an opening, he's got to run on the road in Denver.
Most definitely, and I really just truly believe the Gardner Minshew that we've seen before in the past, he's not a conservative quarterback. He's a gunslinger. He's a guy that's going to go out and make plays and do his thing, for better or for worse, with Gardner Minshew. And I think at times, not like he's being too conservative, but I think he's focused on really just making the play, really just focused on not turning the ball over, just trying to move chains, things of that nature. So we haven't really seen him unleashed the way that we know he can be, with the exception of the fourth quarter against Baltimore. But with the playbook continuing to open up and him having a little bit more trust in the offense, and also Luke Getsy having more trust in him to open up the playbook, we're going to see that vintage Washington State Gardner Minshew that we saw against Baltimore.
Hope so. I want to get to Bo Nix because the Raiders obviously scouted him. They were interested in a quarterback. There were none available, and Bo Nix went, and there was Brock Bowers after that. And I don't even know if Sean Payton wanted him, but he fell in love with them with the media because he has to, because they ran Russell Wilson out. I got a lot of respect for his legs, his mind. He's got a big arm. He can make plays. I expected him to be 0-4 coming into this game because I didn't think they could win at Tampa and at Aaron Rodgers. I just thought that those two games were
hard
no
games.
way. And he won them, and they won them ugly. Turnovers, getting ball, field position. In the Jet game, he threw for 60 yards total, but he ran the ball on some critical plays to keep Aaron Rodgers off the field. We got Patrick Graham here. He's a wizard. He can dial it up here. What do you expect from Patrick Graham, knowing that Bo Nix is only going to get better the more reps he gets?
Well, this is the thing about Bo Nix is the fact that he's a rookie. So we assume with rookie quarterbacks coming in, they don't know a whole lot. But I talked to some coaches and I talked to some players in the locker room, and you have to kind of throw that out the window with Bo Nix because he's a guy that plays so much college football.
Yeah, you're right.
This is a guy that I graduated college 5 years ago, and I saw Bo Nix play in college while I was in college. So that's how long he played in that level.
Yeah, Auburn, Oregon, yeah.
So he's a guy that he's not just he's going to be able to, decipher what's going on with the defense, read it pretty well for a rookie quarterback. So Patrick Graham, he's, like you said, the wizard. He's going to have to come up with some blitzes. He's going to have to do some disguises, especially with how limited the defense seems to be because of injuries. You're definitely going to have to do a little bit more to kind of throw him off.
All right, Ja'Cory Bennett. I think that this guy's been an X factor so far, and I've said this out of respect to him. They're going to attack him. And Jack Jones came in a quarter late. That's all cleaned up. But I think Ja'Cory and Mile High, in this situation, they're going to look to attack him, or at least he's going to have another big game. You know him. You've covered him. You've had access to him in the locker room. What can we expect from him on this 2-2 Raiders team that needs a win in Denver?
Well, he is two things that you love to have in a cornerback, and that is fast and that is physical. And he's shown that. He's leading the team in pass deflections. You damn near can't throw the ball on him on the slant because he's just going to break it up. So he's a guy that he's going to come with a lot of energy and a lot of juice. I expect him to also be able to play on the outside as well as nickel with the versatility he has. Just the mindset that he's had this season is just tremendously higher in terms of confidence than he had last year as a rookie. So I expect him to kind of play all around the field and have potentially some really big matchups against Cortland Sutton.
Thanks for joining us. We look forward to your coverage from Mile High. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You got it. That's Levi Edwards, everybody, as we continue on here. So hour number one, remember, you always find us on YouTube, and here's our radio lineup. The Morning Tailgate, Rich Eisen. I'm on every day, noon to 2. You got Unnecessary Roughness coming up with Q Myers after this show, and I'm on YouTube also. So when we jump off YouTube, if you want to watch the show when I'm either at home or in the Lotus Studios, it's YouTube, JT the Brick, YT for YouTube. And I get a chance to do that there, and I really appreciate growing that platform, and the Raiders giving me an opportunity with this platform to grow it on the Raiders YouTube channel, which we're having a lot of fun. So as we continue on here, it's exciting. The Raiders are 2-2. Usually you don't celebrate 2-2. 2-2 is nothing to write home about. But this year it's different, not just for the Raiders, every team in the NFL. And many teams in the NFL are upside down. They're 1-3. Look at Jacksonville looking for a win. And some of the opponents that the Raiders have on their schedule down the road are struggling. Miami without Tua. Cincinnati with Joe Burrow. We mentioned Jacksonville that haven't won a game. But you got to beat the Denver Broncos. The Raiders have to take control of the AFC West. They lost to the Chargers to start the season on the road, but they beat a great team in Baltimore. Now go on the road, travel with this defense to Denver, and get out of there with the W. Thanks for joining us on Raiders Rundown. Appreciate all of our great guests. Hour number 2 coming up on the radio on the flagship of the Silver and Black.